Yeah, I'll look, I'll look. I know Alex is looking for the same thing. Josh Ream pulled some information together, I just haven't seen it yet.
Okay, that's fine, as long as it's somebody, yeah, I just, because they said by any so I know that everything's about maybe some stuff, but, and it only started with the fence,
Mhm.
but when you tear the fence down, you have to somewhere right away.
Everybody, the time is 2:04, Tuesday, August 1st. This is Rules Administration and Procedures Committee. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairperson Ron Warman.
Here.
Vice Chair Emmanuel Yamas.
Here.
Alderman Edward Bug.
Here.
Alderman Carl Franco.
Here.
Alderwoman Patty Smith.
Here.
All present.
Okay, great, thank you. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Yamas. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody for public comment?
No, we do not.
Perfect, okay. First item on the agenda, 23-0587, an ordinance amending section 2-125 of the Code of Ordinances pertaining to meetings of the standing committees of City Council.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Okay, motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Yamas. All in favor?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, you've got a question?
Did legal want
No, just legal from the last rep committee did complete what was requested in the underlined portion on page 1, lines 13 through 18 reflect what the discussion was. I believe that was what was asked of legal, as well as there's one other portion to add and on line 11.
Yeah, from what we discussed last time, I was trying to find the right place to add.
Alderman Bug, your speaker's off, just so you know.
Sorry about that. I was looking at the right place to add some language. So when we have a special committee meeting on line 19 and 20, and then I was looking for where that there was language, I saw it before and I don't see it, language where you move a meeting. Anyway, I don't see that right now. Anyway, so where 19 would just say special committee meetings may be called by the committee chairperson, 3 committee members, or let's just say, or 3 committee members after giving notice to the full committee. And then the mayor oral part is separate, or by the mayor in the manner authorized by law.
May I ask you a question on that, Alderman Bug?
Mm-hmm.
What is the point? What's the point of putting the "or" in there? It doesn't really change what it says.
Well, I added language after giving notice to the full. So for the first 2, special committee meetings may be called by the committee chairperson. I mean, you don't want to say it twice, so committee chairperson after giving notice to the full committee, or 3. Those are the ways that it's raised. Committee meeting can be raised. So under those first 2 ways, by the chairperson or by 3 members of the committee, we would ask that they also give notice to the full committee. And of course, that's for scheduling purposes, and so.
I still don't understand
Yeah,
what you're changing and how it changes. If you would read the entire sentence in its entirety that you're trying to change, so I can understand what it is you're trying to do, because right now I have no understanding what you're trying to do.
Special committee meetings may be called by the committee chairperson or 3 of the committee's members after giving notice to the full committee. And then or by the mayor in the manner authorized by law.
Legal, does that change anything, or is it, do you see a need for something like that? I'm confused myself, so.
I'm really confused.
I believe what Alderman Bug is asking is just to amend to add the additional language on line 20 to or before the three, and then after giving notice to the entire committee, since that is not in there, that notice requirement.
Okay.
I think he's asking to amend this portion before it goes to committee of the whole.
But if it's up to the,
Well, that's-
my
Yeah, go
apologies.
ahead, yeah,
If it's
the-
up to the chair to call and/or cancel a meeting, why do they have to do it after they talk to the committee? Why can't they make the decision as the chair? And I'm seriously asking this question because I'm trying to figure out why we're doing this. It's the privy of the chairman to be able to cancel and/or add a meeting, and then talk to the committee members. From my understanding, I don't know that it's necessary to talk to the committee members and then make their decision.
Yeah, because if we're going to talk to the
Now we're going
other
in
committee
circles.
members, are we asking if we should have a meeting, or is it still with the discretion of the chair?
You're giving them notice. So in other words, you or a chair sets a meeting and the other four people can't make that meeting, what is the point of setting that meeting if they don't have notice of the time or date of that meeting?
So it's more of a notification versus a poll, I guess, is that?
Yeah, it says to give notice. And I want to add that also with, so those are special meetings, also on moving meetings, moving the time. Deb, do you see where that?
When we get done with this discussion, I'd like to go through step by step what this means, because I'm still not, I'm almost thinking, based on the additional language, we're negating the three of the committee's members. It's almost like, why am I including them, is going to give notice anyway. So I really want to get like what actually really happens, because, I don't mind verbiage, but I want to try to make it so it's not redundant, I guess.
Right.
May I,
Yeah, please.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Just the point of order is that, and obviously this is the time to make these changes and have this discussion, but the reason why this was in front of us was about meetings not going forward to be for approving the agenda only, or minutes only. So this is a different portion of something that I don't know that we have had much discussion of. So this isn't something that was part of the original.
Yeah, so this isn't new language.
This is completely new from what the topic that we started this out on. So I would suggest that
We started this out as a full review of this section. That's what,
you were obviously sitting in a different room than I was in, because when the ordinance that we read at the last meeting, the last RAP meeting, was about not having meetings for the point of just voting on minutes.
So how about this? How about-
right, that was the individual section, but it was a review of this section. So when you review a section, you review the whole thing. You don't review part of it. Review it in bonk.
So we already have a motion in a second. I mean, what's the next step? I ask for a motion if we want to add the language, or do we?
You would, if Alderman Bug would like to proceed with this, it would be an amendment to what is proposed, adding that additional language.
So he would have to motion something like that? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm holding. Do you see the section where it says that you move a meeting?
All I saw is on line 22, page 1, is that the location of the standing meeting or special committee is insufficient to accommodate the public. That was the area I saw it in. I don't know if,
Okay.
unless
Yeah.
it's further up in B, under lines 7 through 10 on page 1.
Yeah, it doesn't say specifically to move the time. And I thought we had a section that did. And that's okay. Yeah, I would make that motion to give notice. And to clarify for you, Alderman Smith, the second portion, so those are the ways that a committee can have a special meeting. So under the second way, 3 committee members, you're assuming those 3 committee members probably don't include the chair. So that would also give the chair and the 5th person notice of that meeting before it's set. So again, scheduling purposes, and so the whole committee can be on the same page on, hopefully to have a meeting where everyone can be at.
I have a question.
But everyone doesn't need to be at a meeting, it has to be a majority, if there's a change in it.
And my guess, if 3 committee members want to call
Well,
a
it has to
meeting,
be
Would make
a
that.
quorum, yeah.
they would already have a quorum with the 3 that would call them.
Well, yeah. But you're getting, it's the difference of getting notice before the meeting is set or notice after the meeting is set, because you have to give notice.
So I have a question for
The
legal
world has to give notice.
and everybody. All right, let's just go through this. 3 of us, this is a special committee. You're the chair. 3 of us say we're going to call a meeting. If we do that without putting that language in, would you notify the rest, would somebody in the universe notify the rest of the committee that we're having a meeting? Because I know what you're saying, and I guess there's some assumptions we make. If 3 of us call a meeting, of course, I would think we're going to call the chair and the other person. So I don't know, I understand what you're saying, I just don't know if
You need the language.
that's an assumption that we should always make, because we're always notified of a meeting. So that would be my question for that. Whether
have to do it.
they don't, yes, that makes perfect sense. If they do, I would just add an extra verbiage in, I guess.
Well, no, you would, the way it's set now, you would be notified after the meeting is set. So
So you're suggesting the chair
just when
ask?
you would be noticed by our clerk, the way anybody, the public is noticed. The clerk publishes an agenda and it goes out to our chief of staff, and the meeting is noticed not only to us, it's noticed to the world.
Are you suggesting that prior to a change in a meeting, a chairman needs to ask 3 committee members if they can change it? Or they have to contact 3 people to say, I'm changing this? That's 2 different things. One's asking and one's changing.
Okay, well,
What's the intent?
the intent is to give notice. So giving notice is a term of art. Giving notice is just that, giving notice to notify those committee members.
But, I mean, if we give notice,
It's in there.
for the Open Meetings Act, we're going to do it 2 days before or 2.
So you're saying going the extra step and going before there's even official notice. 3 of us call a meeting, and before anybody sets it, we're just going to tell the rest of the committee, by the way, we're doing this. And then they have it's more of like it's a notice, but a heads up, right? Prior to.
Yeah, for a number, yeah, heads up, scheduling,
Sure, right.
and like I said,
But again, why would it, let's say the meeting was on Wednesday, if I said I want to have a meeting on Tuesday and everybody agrees, I mean, is there a time frame? Like I got to give you a week's notice, or what if it's just the 2 days?
Well,
That's,
I would say if you're going to put that in there, you might want to put parameters on that. I mean,
I
I don't know. I'm just trying to
we're
figure that out. I mean,
micromanaging
when
this sentence.
prior, how much prior? I mean,
I think we're micromanaging
it's-
micromanaging this sentence, from my opinion. I will vote against this because to me, it says it's giving notice in here, and it's a point of order that we have always done, and we have staff that does that. If we're going to start micromanaging all of our ordinances, we're going to be in some big, long trouble and some really long meetings. If we're
That's
just
what
going
we're
to
here
add an or in there, and where is the next, after the next comma is an or. I don't understand the need for this. If I felt there was a need for it, I would certainly support it. I don't understand the purpose of putting that in there. Does anyone feel that they're not being notified of meetings? We have plenty of notice of meetings.
These are special meetings.
I understand. I see the word special right there next to the 19.
Alderman Yellis?
Has this ever been an issue where someone wasn't notified of a special meeting? I mean, I don't know why we're
Well,
addressing
so,
things.
let's
don't
just
need
go,
to be
let's just go
fixed.
look at a few. So, we've done some with RAP, obviously. We do it every year with finance. As a matter of fact, right now with finance, we're working on the meeting schedule, so we're kind of going through that. So I don't know if that's, from my perspective, being chair of a couple meetings, I've always told people before the 48 hours when we're going to meet if there's a thing, as the chairperson. I would think that would go along with the lines of 3 people called a meeting would be very similar. So I don't know that that's a thing. I've never really seen that before where, oh, I only know about it because I read it online, or I don't think that's happened. So so I'm not sure that that's ever been a problem in the past, to answer that question, based on my experience.
Yeah, I would agree. If you, I mean, you're gonna get a notice, you're gonna get a notice, so, you know, I don't want to micromanage either, so.
I think if we had more specifics that this was a problem, the conversation should continue, but if this has truly never been a problem, my point would be to move forward. We have a motion and a second, and this needs to be revisited. We revisit it.
Well, Carl's correct, and we're handling finance right now, and he's doing a great job. You know, but part of this comes from the beginning, and I discussed it last week, and, you know, this was probably just an oversight last time on the budget, but the budget meetings were set, and the committee was not aware of the time and dates until after it was set.
So I believe this is being pointed at finance.
No, this isn't being
No,
pointed
but
at finance. This is for all
Right.
special committee meetings. It's not pointed at anybody.
All right, so that's a good point. So now, I guess the wording in here, would that eliminate that? Because we're gonna set, let's just say we go back last year, we set the meetings, but the whole committee knew about it well in advance of the actual meetings occurring. You know, we set it, but then you were advised, but you weren't advised like 48 hours in advance, you were advised like a month in advance because we got the schedule out there. So I don't know, based on that particular situation, if the wording here would eliminate that because you're just advising. Because we did advise, but it was set. So that might be a
Right.
separation.
The
there.
meeting was already set.
Right.
Then the committee was advised.
So you're saying-
This would give notice to the committee before the meeting's set.
Before it's set.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
no,
well,
that's right.
Special committee meetings may be called by the committee chairperson, 3 committee members, or by the mayor, and that's separate. The mayor is separate.
Well,
So the first 2 by the committee chairperson. So again, if the committee chairperson called a meeting, called through our chief of staff would get a hold of the clerk and set a meeting. And the meeting's set. And then the other 4 people were notified. And the other 4 people found out, well, it's fantastic. We set a meeting. I'm not available at that time or day for that meeting.
But Alderman Bug, can you tell me a time and place that this has ever occurred in the history of the years that you've been here?
Yeah, for the 3rd time.
That more than 3 people couldn't make it to a meeting? If one person can't make it, it's okay. Especially if it's a special meeting, that's an additional meeting.
Right. Well, a special meeting is just that. Special for a reason, because you need to call a special meeting. You know, it's not an ordinary meeting. You evidently have some important business to take care of. But as I said, when the budget meetings were set last year, myself, Alderman Harp Burns, and Alderman Jenkins at the time, we knew we had conflicts with a number of dates. Actually, all 3 of us knew we were going to be gone on, I think, 1 or 2 dates. Now, we had time to correct it, but this would give notice to the whole committee before the meetings are set and not afterwards.
I'm whatever you all feel, but this is being pointed straight at finance because of finance is where these problems have occurred.
This is not being pointed at finances.
You just said this was 3 people last year at finance.
Well, you asked for a specific case, but this would be for all committees. It wouldn't just be for finance. It'd be for all committees, be for all 12 aldermen, because 3 aldermen can call a special committee meeting, and then they would give notice to the other 2 before the meeting's set.
Alderman Young?
With the language that you're proposing, that change, would that only, I'm looking down here, lines 20 and 21, specifically line 21 allows the mayor to do it without this. So what you're proposing here, we have to give notice first. Would that include a special meeting set by the mayor or only by the chairman?
No,
Or
the first 2, by the committee chairperson.
Why wouldn't we want
or
to include it with
3.
the mayor then too? If we're limiting ourselves to not the mayor. The result would be the same for you if you're worried about the meeting being set without you being available. Well, with the change you're proposing, it only applies to the meeting that's set by 3 aldermen, the chairman, but not the mayor. So the mayor could still go and do that. And if someone is going to be in a position to ask you your availability and to reach out to you, I think it would be some of your colleagues and not the 3rd floor.
Well, it says the mayor as authorized by law.
Yeah. So
So
you're
the mayor,
asking
the
for
mayoral
required.
office has different parameters for calling meetings than the alderman.
They don't check our availability before setting a meeting.
No.
But you're asking us to do that to ourselves.
Correct. No, like I said, they have special, so they have, it's under their authority to set our committee meeting times. This meeting, Tuesday at 3:00. That is set by the mayor's office. They
Isn't that what you're
review that.
asking that we address now, though?
No, those are regular meetings. Those are set when, after
language-
elections, and this is for special committee meetings.
Yeah, but the special committee meetings can still be maybe called by the committee chairperson, comma, 3 of the committee members, comma, or by the mayor in the manner authorized by law. So the mayor could still call a special meeting.
Yeah,
Right, that's the way I'm reading
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So what you're asking for doesn't, if you don't want to apply that to the mayor, then what's the point? Because then the mayor's office could still do that and you would still be in the same position that you don't want to be in, where their meeting is set without them giving you notice before it being set.
Yeah, like I said, the mayor
no
has
reason to do
different
it. There's no
authoritative
point.
powers.
I think
to
we should call the
meetings
vote.
from
Yeah, call a vote.
We should call the vote.
So, do I just call a vote since we have a motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Yamas, or?
Is there a motion to amend?
Yeah, I
There's a
make the
motion
motion
to
to amend
Is there-
line 20,
Motion to amend, Alderman Bug, any second?
as stated after giving notice to the full committee regarding special committee meetings.
Do I hear a second? Motion denied. So, and I call a vote on,
May I ask, I had a couple things that come up. So,
Yeah, sure.
based on what we we're originally here for, so we have a special committee meeting. And special committees may have one meeting. So when are those minutes looked at going forward, in committee of the whole? Because special committee could be just for a meeting or 2. There's an end. There's no end to finance, there's no end to these other ones. You're always going to have a subsequent meeting. So for approval of the minutes, if you have just the 1 meeting or 2 meetings, but you know there's no more meetings on this topic, which we've had before, where does that, the approval of the minutes fall in?
Do you mean a special meeting for a non-city committee?
So let's just go back. So when we did the wrap, we did the dog issue with the pet stores. All right, after the last meeting, the minutes of that meeting, where did we approve? I don't remember where we approved those.
The next wrap.
Was that wrap?
It stays under the committee.
Okay, so it goes, okay.
I thought you were saying maybe
Well, so,
well, we used to create special committees.
Right.
We don't anymore because now we have 5 instead
Right.
of 3.
but then there was, okay, so that might not be, if that's the case, that's not a factor. I remember we did the compensation committee and it ends, that comes every 2 or 4 years, whatever the case may be. So maybe that would be more pertinent in this case?
Right.
If you don't have any subsequent meetings?
Even the map, we put that under wrap.
Okay, so we're always gonna, all right, that would make
You know,
sense. We're
we
assigning
slot it
to-
under
All right.
a committee, so.
All right, so if we do that, then that question doesn't matter. The other question I would have too, then based on not having a meeting to approve the minutes of a meeting we had 2 weeks ago. So we don't have a meeting today, for example, but there's a 30-day window where you have to approve those minutes. So could you go 2 meetings in a row? Because that's 28 days now. And then the third one would be certainly more than the 30 days. So how does that fit into it as far as legalities of having to actually approve the minutes at some point in time? If you know what I'm saying.
They shouldn't go 2 meetings.
Is that,
Yeah, I think that is something that we'll have to be aware of. It really shouldn't skip 2 meetings in a row. If we would have to calendar, if we know the previous one was canceled and we still had minutes, unless there was a way to get it on the
COW.
COW, but
right.
I think we'll just have to watch.
Right, but you see what I'm saying, that could, if you just did 2 in a row, you may be violating something, because that 30-day period will expire in the third meeting, once you get there, so in between. So I didn't know how we would handle that. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't want to throw any more flies in the ointment, but it came to mind because what if we had to? So do we want to address it with wording, or we're just gonna say we'll take care of the committee of the whole? I mean, I don't care, but we better have a mechanism to how we do this so we don't violate something, I guess.
It says it in there that needs to be done within 30 days. It specifically says it in there, so.
It physically says it in there. So what I'm saying is, if you just had
It's the
2 meetings in a
responsibility of
row
the
with just
chair.
minutes, you're violating something when you get to the third one.
But
'cause
that's
you
the
know-
responsibility of the chair. As the second meeting comes around, the chairman would keep the meeting because they know that they didn't have the last one. I would think that would be the responsibility of the chair to know that that they had to, at this point, have the meeting just to approve those minutes.
And maybe we don't have to put that right, but just, it has to be acknowledged that that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's a thing, because you really, in essence, really couldn't have more than 1 in a row.
That's why we have chairman.
Okay, no, that's fine, that's something that needs to be thought about, because if somebody didn't think about that, or forgot there's a 30-day thing, it says, it's 2 meetings in a row, we don't have nothing in minutes, well, you gotta have that second one, because you gotta put those minutes. So basically, we can look at it later on if that's a thing, but yes, you're right, but
Wait, say that.
we have to remember that, you're right, we have to remember that. I just don't wanna violate something because we missed, while we're working on it, we missed something today, so, okay. All right, I guess my questions have been asked and answered. Thank you.
Perfect,
I
okay.
have no more.
Okay, so I'm going to read this again, and then I'll call a vote. So this is, again, a vote for 23-0587, an ordinance amending Section 2-125 of Code of Ordinances pertaining to meetings of the standing committees of the council. All in favor?
As for poll,
Say again.
as for poll, roll call.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Chairperson Brown Warman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Emmanuel Yamas,
Yes.
Alderman Edward Bug,
No.
Alderman Carl Franco,
Yes.
Alderwoman Patty Smith,
Yes.
4-1.
Okay, next item on the agenda, 23-0593, discussion of upcoming proposed changes to Chapter 32, peddlers and solicitors of the Code of Ordinances.
Good afternoon, Jennifer Stallings, City Clerk. We are here because we have been reviewing the peddler and solicitor ordinance, and we're looking to get your opinions on a few of the bigger picture items that are contained within the ordinance. I just wanted to point out a couple things. The staff is making suggestions for changes. We'll talk about those first. Second, suggestions have been made by our outside counsel. I don't know how to do this. Anyone? Just gonna push all the buttons till it works. All right. So the first changes that we have reviewed and have recommendations on for your consideration are to the locations that peddlers and solicitors are allowed to operate from. What we have found in the last couple of years especially, we have people calling the city clerk's office. So the city clerk's office administers the peddlers and solicitors ordinance, or the permitting process. They will call our office, and they are frequently confused about where they can peddle, where they can solicit. They frequently want to and frequently have utilized temporary structures. They've set structures up at gas stations, parking lots, and sold items frequently for special occasions from those areas. I have a couple of questions that we get a lot. This 4th of July, someone wanted to sell glow sticks, sparklers, fireworks-ish outside of Ace Hardware. We had someone set up a tent outside of a gas station off of Farnsworth to sell teddy bears this year. Our current code says that people can peddle and solicit on private business premises if they have permission and if the items that they are selling are also sold from that business. So an example, someone wants to set up outside of a gas station. The gas station also sells teddy bears. Is that allowed? These are the kind of questions that my office has come across recently. So what we are suggesting in order to clear this section up a bit is to add temporary sales structure as a definition, and then prohibit sales from temporary sales structure. So temporary sales structure, again, stands, tables, tents, that type of thing. We also want to amend section 32-26, section B. We're asking to amend to say that peddlers and solicitors cannot operate on private businesses or vacant premises. Now, it does say currently in the code, you'll see on section B that you cannot use vacant premises to sell items. Again, we have run into an issue where the interpretation of what is a vacant premises has come into play. And we really want to be able to apply this fairly to everyone. So in order to do that, we're asking to add section C, which says that we do not allow sales to occur outside. And this would include the temporary sales structures, tents, pop-up tents, with the exception that outside sales can occur with perhaps a special event permit, food truck permit, other permitted uses. So for discussion on this topic, the issues that we wanted to discuss or get your input on is whether or not we want to allow tents to be set up in locations to sell items on a temporary basis. Is there generally a problem with this? Do you get complaints? Is this something that you would like us to look at and proceed with proposed language on? Just keeping in consideration that we have in the past, when this has happened, required the peddler or solicitor to obtain written permission from the actual owner. But that being said, I don't know what the feeling is from the council, or we don't know what the feeling is generally if you want to allow people to set up and sell.
Could I ask a question?
Sure, Alderman Franco.
So, for example, I just want to make sure this is clear. The Jewel by me, they set up a tent in the summer in the parking lot for extra flower and stuff. You're not paying for it there, but it's a temporary structure. Would that not be included because you have to go inside and pay, that type of thing?
My understanding is that is a special permitted use
Oh, it
of
is?
that location.
Yes, that runs, with the land, they've got to go through zoning. It is a special conditional use that is usually applied for when they are going to put in the building. Because we do have a case currently of a business here in Aurora that has been doing sidewalk sales that does not have that zoning permission.
So they're permittable to do it. It's just obviously no pun intended, but get the permit to do that. Okay, all right. I just want to make sure. I'm just trying to balance where we're at with that, given some real life situations. So, okay, thank you.
It's one clarification. So using Juul as an example, they're permitted to do that. That's just them personally. They couldn't let somebody else do that? Like you want to come and sell something there, would they be able to allow that?
I think under this code section, the answer would be no.
Yeah, so it's just them specifically, right? Okay, good.
Even with a permit?
Even what?
Sorry. I didn't
Yeah, go ahead.
ask. In that situation, keeping with Jewel, if somebody wanted to get to the end of Jewel and do the glow sticks or whatever, if Jewel gave them permission, or is that something that we're taking away completely so that it's just not, you're not able to do that?
That's something that we would be looking at, removing completely for-profit peddlers. Now, if we're looking, we're going to talk separately about charitables.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So moving on to the next topic that we would like to discuss. Currently, when peddlers and solicitors apply for their application, we ask them if they if they are a registered or convicted sex offender, if they have had a felony, and if they have had 2 or more DUIs. They if they answer yes, our code as it currently sits does not allow us to prohibit them from peddling. Really, they are then operating with our office having the knowledge that they do have convictions, perhaps, but we can't look into it really any further, and we really can't do anything about it. So what we wanted to talk to the committee about was whether or not we want, well, there are a few things, whether we want to require the for-profit peddlers, not the charitable solicitors, for-profit peddlers to obtain background checks that they have to submit proof of the background check when they submit their application. If we do want to require that, if there are offenses in the background, we need to determine what we are going to make a disqualifying offense. And then the last thing is that we need to be able to give people an appeal process then. So to break it down, do we want to have peddlers and solicitors have to obtain background checks? Do we want to identify specific disqualifying offenses that might show up on those background checks? And if we do we want to give them an appeal process of sorts for a more specific in-depth review, allow them to submit information, mitigating information as to why they should be allowed to solicit? If we have disqualifying offenses, do we want to put a time limit on it? It has been suggested a felony within 5 years that has something to do with dishonesty or theft. Maybe a permanent disqualifier would be violent crimes. So keeping in mind that these are the people that we are giving permission to go door to door in the city to solicit. Yes, ma'am.
You want input now?
Yes, please.
Well, I think anytime you go door to door, you better have a background check. I think if you're going to set up a tent in a parking lot and get a permit and you're convicted felon, you served your time, why would we, that means we got to come to you. I don't know that that's a problem unless you're a sex offender and selling ice cream at a tent. It's very complex. But I would say right off the get-go, if you're going to come to my house, I want to know that you've been vetted by the city. Because I'm not, if I go somewhere, it's on me, but if you come to my house, I would want to know that, I guess. So that would be my opinion on that topic.
And I think a big part of this is my office signs off on these permits, and am I saying they're safe? No. I don't know that they're safe right now. Am I going to be able to say they're safe if we have a background check on them? No. But it'll be a lot closer to safe, in my opinion. I would feel more comfortable allowing or issuing those permits for someone that we've had a background check on.
And in
Mr.
that light,
Mr.
if
Chair.
something happens, and I apologize again, I need
No,
to
it's
learn
okay.
to take my turn.
Take a note.
That we have given permission to do so, where does that blame and/or fault lie?
So I think I'm going to leave that to Deb Lang to give the ultimate answer. However, I think that if we have,
Too broad of a question.
I understand what your question is. I think that it's a very good question, and it's a question that goes through my head as well. You know, where do we stop? If we say, is everyone who has a felony in their background rehabilitated? Okay. Do the residents feel safe? I don't know. Anybody can walk up to anybody's house at any time, but like you said, this is us giving permission for people to walk up to other people's homes. I think one thing that we can pretty much agree on is that anyone who has a conviction for a violent crime on their background should not be issued a peddler's permit.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Bug?
thank you. So we're looking at this after review by our outside legal counsel. So, I mean, of course, that's our starting point. So under state law, and I don't know all of this. So you become a registered sex offender. There are certain things you cannot do. So under that, what I'm gathering from you, registered sex offenders are allowed to go door to door and solicit business. Under state law, they're allowed to do that.
I don't know that they are. I don't know what the conditions of sex offender registry necessarily specifically are, but
Yeah, I'm saying, did our legal, I mean, this is coming after a review from our outside counsel. They looked at that, right? I mean, I don't know what the state laws for registered sex offenders are, but there's some things they can't do. They can't go within 100 feet, or don't quote me on the feet, but of a park. or
Daycare centers.
Daycare center, right. So it's one of those things under registered sex offenders, you cannot, as a business person or whatever, go door to door to solicit business in the state of Illinois. Is that
I don't believe it's that specifically laid out.
okay? So they kind of leave it up to the municipalities then.
I don't know that it's that specifically laid out for each individual or that there's a blanket for sex offender registry, what they can or cannot do. And again, I'm not speaking to it specifically because I do not know. But what I believe is that big picture here is that currently we are asking them if they're registered sex offenders. If they are, and they say no, we don't know any better, we give them the permit. It's on them to follow the requirements of their registration. But we are kind of stuck with, right now, taking their word for it.
May I ask a question?
Sure, Alderman Smith?
On that specific topic, is there a box to check, yes or no? So they have to check
Yes.
that box? It's not just you asking?
Correct, yeah, on the application, it's an online application now, but we ask the question, and then at the end of the application, we require them to, swear that they're telling the truth about everything. And, that is a good recourse if we find out down the road that they have been dishonest in their application. And I think that's one very good avenue. However, if we're looking, on the other hand, in protecting proactively, knowing in advance would probably be better.
Can we change the application in any way?
We can change the application however we would like, really.
So, but you're specifically, this would be caught by the background checked, and you want to put language in there that we would say if sex offenders, violent crime offenders cannot do that. So that's what we're looking to do now, so.
Yes.
As it sits right now, they can say that, yeah, I committed a violent crime, and we're just going to say thanks and good luck selling, right? So, I mean, there's really no recourse for that. This will give us the opportunity to say no then, correct?
Correct. So that's the kind of the second prong of this is identifying specifically what the disqualifying offenses on a background check would be. Although if we keep it the way it is, we would still need to lay out the disqualifying offenses and specifically ask them to attest to the truthfulness of their application when they say they have or they do not have a criminal history. Going to the charitables in this respect, though, the applications are a little bit different right now because the alderman's office administers the application process for the charitable solicitors campaigns. Currently, we do ask the same questions of the charitable solicitor applicants, and we would ask to keep that the same, but specify what we're looking for as far as criminal history. Just for your information, a little bit of comparative analysis with local-ish municipalities. It's relatively even based on the 12 that I looked at. When I say full ISP FBI background check, that's fingerprints, ISP reports directly to us. In-house, some of these other municipalities have their police look up, do a more of a, I believe it would be more of a simple background check than you might get from ISP or FBI. Or they have staff looking in their local court records to see if there's anything related to the applicant. Currently, Aurora requires self-disclosure only, along with Montgomery. And then there are 2 with no disclosure requirement. And Geneva does not require a permit, apparently, for peddlers and solicitors.
Wow.
The next slide, it has a lot of words, but it basically breaks down what we were looking to do. We would be proposing to remove the blanket prohibition against felons. We would want to limit the types of crimes and limit the ages of the crimes, or the final disposition of the crimes. And we would be recommending crimes of fraud, dishonesty, and violent crimes, whether they're misdemeanors or felonies. And then we are asking for you to seriously consider requiring the background checks and adding a provision that, and this is another area where we really wanted some feedback from you, is do you want to add a provision where they can be found sufficiently rehabilitated? And then we would also give them an appeal process or provide them with the information on the appeal process if they are denied a permit. So I think what we have discussed as well is, in reality, this is very good to have laid out. It's good to have in black and white. But I feel like if someone is going to apply and they're going to be denied, these companies might find another person to do the work for them. But it's a good practice, I think, to have all of the requirements and appeal processes laid out.
Mr. Chair.
Sure, Alderman Bug.
I have an overall question, kind of about charitable, because we're getting into it, so I think a lot of people have this question. So, in an intersection, we're seeing a lot of this lately. Of course, we require our charitable different organizations to come to you, get whatever permit. We ask them to wear some type of vest and all kinds of, we have a list of things we ask them to do. Then we have next to the charitable person, a resident here with a sign asking for money, peddling, soliciting, what have you. Now, again, this comes out of a review of the law, so I guess part of my question is, what is the update on the law? I know in talking to the police officers and that, the Supreme Court has said we are very hands-off in that situation. So, I mean, even in my mind, when I see the 2 next to each other, and they're next to each other in the same intersection, how are we regulating the charitable ones, and we have no authority whatsoever to touch the people peddling next to them?
That's a really good question, Alderman Bug. I think,
Everything is still evolving. The case law right now is where we cannot regulate unless there is traffic being impeded, disruption to traffic, but that could also be they're doing exactly what the charitable solicitors are doing as well. And I think you will see further on in the presentation,
Okay, no,
a change in
that's extra
charitable.
information.
Yes.
So impeding traffic.
Correct, but as we've advised the police department, we need to document that you actually see that happening, take pictures, video, or causing a danger. We had somebody laying down at 59 and, I think it's Aurora Avenue over there.
I probably saw it.
Yes, where we did have to get the person off the median because there was a maybe 24-inch median that someone was laying down on, which was very concerning in case traffic was going to possibly hit him. So at this point, that is really the only time that police will get involved. So if somebody is soliciting in the intersection, unfortunately, unless there is distraction to traffic or any
Okay.
safety issues, the police cannot.
Okay, thank you. That's excellent information for us. Every side of town, but my focus is Route 59 and just creating very, very serious safety issues.
And our community-oriented police officers have been trying their best. We have been reading case law from a case across the nation. This is a nationwide issue that is trying to be resolved. But I don't know in the meantime that much will change quite yet.
Okay, but for the alderman, I mean, that's good to know if we see a serious safety situation. Because like what you said, I'd heard that it's just hands off. You can't really do much of anything. But if we have this safety concern, we can call in police non-emergency, whatever, and say there's a situation we need to get it looked at.
Correct, and we do work with the police department usually on a case-by-case basis to determine what the facts are, just so we can document.
Right.
Because this is
Okay.
a very highly litigated area right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think Alderman Smith had a question as well.
Yeah, just good timing to add this piece in. We've all noticed the uptick on this occurring on our streets and roads. But the other thing that's occurring that didn't used to happen during peddling is the trash that's being left behind. So people will, rather than give money, will bring food to the person, where there will be times when there are very large amounts of things that are there, that are, I mean, I'm talking large amount, and then it's just left there. And then it's in our streets. And I know that there's no answer to that, so I'm not asking you to answer that, but it's just, it's another situation that's occurring out of this. And it's not just a cup or two, it's a lot of trash. It's just flying on both sides of the road. So maybe, rather than money, hand them a garbage bag?
thank you, Alderman Smith. Alderwoman Smith. Good? Okay. One thing that I just wanted to point out, two things I wanted to point out were that one of the concerns that we had for requirement of the background check is whether it would be cost prohibitive to some of the individuals. Maybe we've got small business people who are out there. It's about $60 to have the background check done. And then it doesn't take a lot of time. What I'm noticing when we receive liquor license background checks, maybe a week or so, but that would have to be baked into the process for processing applications. And, we had a lot of peddlers and solicitors out after the storm. I know that they all wanted to get out there as fast as possible and to get to everybody first. So this would be a a time consideration on both accounts and money.
Alderman Franco.
So, yeah, the cost is a thing, but what, do we have a period of time that the background check is good for? So if it's $60, but they got it for 3 years, it's 20 per year, that type of thing? How's that?
Yeah, so my thought is to propose 3 years, just like we do with our liquor license applicants. The only thing with that is that, and I don't know specifically, it does seem that a lot of the companies bring in kind of teams during the summer to solicit. So I don't know that it would do them much good to have the 3 years, but if it's somebody who's a regular, then that would definitely be a little easier for them.
Well, and I would not feel sorry for all these roofing companies that are making millions of dollars on the Mother Nature recently. So $60 to them making all this money is not a bad deal because they're doing pretty good. So
Right.
that particular situation is not a factor. If they're not willing to spend the $60, that's too bad because they're making millions. So I don't think for that isolated case, it's a situation.
Okay, when I get the projectors working again, there we go, just wave it around. So the next item that we want to talk about is the process for the charitable solicitor permits. Currently, as you all know, that the alderman's office accepts the applications. They process the applications for the Public Health, Safety, and Transportation Committee. The applicants, at least one representative, appears at the committee to answer any questions. The alderman's office then gives the city clerk's office the background information after it's really been processed and approved. Clerk's office then kind of seals it and sends people on their way. At this point, we would like to propose moving that process entirely from the alderman's office to the city clerk's office. We're operating under the same ordinance, very similar processes. But what that would also entail in our proposal at the end is not requiring the applicants to appear before the PHST committee. So we wanted to get your input on that as well.
Alderman Smith.
I'd like to hear my chief of staff's input on that. Who in our office takes care of that portion, and is this a good relief from the, for the process for you guys, or?
Rich Jacobs, Chief of Staff, Alderman's Office. So on the website, there's a link that they fill out the form, and it gets generated into our office. And currently, whoever is chairing the PHST committee, they're the ones that then enters it into Legistar, and then it goes before information only to the PHST committee. There is correspondence from our office, or in this instance from Kathy, to the applicant strongly encouraging them to show up and stating the date of the meeting. And then some of them do come to the meeting, some of them do not.
And what you're feeling about funneling this all through the clerk's office?
This is not a disruption in our office at all, and it makes perfect sense keeping it into the clerk's office where every other permit, other than the block parties and the street closures, are, we don't issue the permit, so it still has to go over to the clerk's office. It's just a cleaner process to have it streamlined into the clerk's office.
Thank you.
So up on the board, I just took the Legistar items from what we have of this year and last year, just to give you an idea of the volume. If we were to add that volume to the clerk's office, it really wouldn't, it's not adding that much extra work. That being said, I think a lot of that also depends on how the committee and the council feels about removing the appearance before PHST for these permits.
Did you notify that they would still get their weekly reports?
Yeah, so Socorro in my office on a weekly basis puts together a list of the approved peddlers and solicitors, the approved food trucks, and this information would go on that list already. It would go on the list if it doesn't already. Yes. Okay. Does anyone have any strong feelings one way or the other as far as objecting to the committee not viewing these individually?
Committee?
And this,
Chief of staff is fine with it.
okay,
Following that.
great. We will move on to the next. In reviewing the ordinance, we felt that we are lacking currently somewhat in our process. Suspension, revocation, and banning of peddlers and solicitors, and then allowing for an appeal process for them. So what we would like to do is add a provision regarding suspension. If we receive reports and we have reasonable cause to believe that a violation has been committed, we would ask if the city clerk can immediately, temporarily suspend a peddler's permit pending a hearing before the administrative hearing officer. We do currently have the hearing process set out, and it seems to run pretty smoothly. And the hearing officer can revoke a permit after findings are made. But adding this step in the middle would be helpful so that if we have a video of somebody walking up to a house that has a no solicitors sign on it, that's pretty good evidence, reasonable cause to believe that they're violating the ordinance. As far as banning, we've tried. We have tried banning just by sending a letter. A lot of the biggest offenders are not registered, and they're kind of hard to find. So we would be asking if someone's unpermitted and they go to a hearing, that we be able to ban them as well. We would also give them the appeal process that we have set out for the other ordinances in Chapter 3.
Chairman, I would strongly suggest we implement the suspension for these type of things. And I don't know if my colleagues are aware, but I've dealt 2 times with people soliciting, come to my house, told them I'm the alderman, no lanyard, gave me a little grief, continued on their way to solicit after I told them not to. So yes, those type of violations need to be addressed, they need to be addressed severely. So I think, yes, we need to suspend immediately because we can't let it get away. And I'm assuming with all these roofing things, that this has been going on terribly bad. And I know we can't catch them all, because even when I filled out that, the complaint, it's kind of, it's a process for me to do. So I think people just don't want to do that. So whenever we catch somebody and it's that abrasive of a violation, that I think we should be able to just hammer them, because they just don't care. Literally don't care. So.
Thank you. You've heard us talk about this before in other sections of the code. In other sections of the code, just asking to set fees via resolution, just removing it from the ordinance. The fees have already been set. They're set at $100 per month per person. Another problem, it's a recurring issue. We have people who leave materials on vehicles and at vacant residences and also occupied residences. So what we would like to propose is a blanket prohibition on leaving materials on cars. Right now, the code says you can't leave materials on cars in a manner that it might come off of the car. I don't know how anyone can gauge that other than if it flies off the car. So we're just asking for simplicity to just tell people that cannot put materials on cars. Currently, leaving materials on vacant premises we are, one, with respect to the materials, we're asking to eliminate the distinction between commercial and non-commercial materials. That just meaning that we are not regulating the content of the materials themselves. We're just looking at one type of material. The second part of this section is it adds all these qualifiers that the people who are leaving materials have to look at and analyze apparently before they leave the materials. We're just asking if premises is vacant, you don't leave materials.
And real quick too, I just want to state for the record that Alderman Bug did leave at 3:05 PM, so just wanted that for the record, so.
And the last one is at residences. What we would like is if someone's there, if they want your material, they can take it. If not, you don't leave it. You can't leave material in mailboxes. There's the one exception would be if you've subscribed to something like a newspaper. They can obviously, if you've already have an advanced agreement with them, they can leave the newspaper for you.
May I ask a question on this particular piece? So this is at homes and at commercial properties? And how does this pertain to political material?
So this one is private inhabited premises, so private homes. The one before that is vacant. I'm not sure what the incentive would be to leave something at a vacant premise, but apparently it happens. And as far as, we actually have a slide coming up regarding political and religious materials.
Thank you.
The next slide is about allowed hours. Currently, our hours, we split it up into two halves of the year, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the spring and summer, and 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the fall and winter. Other cities, similar-ish. I don't think any of them split up the years, but what a lot of them do is they prohibit Sunday and holiday peddling and solicitation. Going back, our outside counsel suggested that we extend our hour by 1. They were thinking that we were a little bit too limited, ending at 6 and 7 p.m. So the question in front of the committee and council is, do we want to keep them the same, or do we want to add an hour? What we were thinking was maybe adding an hour and then limiting weekends and holidays. Or Sundays and holidays, sorry. The other cities say state and federal holidays, so we would probably specify in that way.
Can I ask a question?
Alderman Franco?
So who suggested we make the hours longer?
Outside counsel from Kleinthorpe and Jenkins.
Did they give a reason for that?
Yes, some of the case law that has been coming through, you have to have a good reason to tie it to. Some of the hours, the complaints would be the businesses can't do their business with the sun setting. People aren't getting home till 5:30, so in effect, you're really limiting the hours. So extending it that extra hour to perhaps 8, I think would strike the balance of peace at the house and also allowing businesses to operate where we can, if there is litigation, we have the public interest still there as far as nighttime hours. And again, advising the citizens or residents to post no soliciting signs. So it's just striking that balance, educating the public and the peddlers as well, or solicitors.
So would the suggestion be just doing it in the summertime because it's going to be light until 8 o'clock? Because I think that darkness thing is a real issue. I don't really want to answer the door when it's dark. And obviously, you go to 7 o'clock in the middle of the winter, it's dark at 5. So I would be apprehensive to do that, but when it's light out, I think that would be fairly reasonable based on what you're saying. I mean, personally, that's how I would think about that.
8 PM in the summer and 6 PM in the winter. We're at 6 now.
I just think that darkness thing, I don't even like going to anybody's door when it's dark. So I feel kind of comfortable because they don't know who it is and stuff like that. So I just, yeah, but.
Okay.
But we would still, no holidays, no weekends, still would be comfortable with keeping that in there?
Yeah, taking out holidays and Sundays.
Or,
Yeah.
I guess we would add it, I guess, yes.
Okay.
But sure.
I'm in agreement with Alderman Franco on that. I could see adding to 8 o'clock during the summer months, but I don't believe we need to go to 7 o'clock during the winter months because nobody's answering their door, and it's kind of disturbing to have people knock on your doors after dark,
Yeah.
from my perspective. Even if we put October up with the first part of the year, that could be a compromise. Just a little bit later.
Thank you.
I mean, just one point here, so devil's advocate, at 6 o'clock, it's pretty darn dark in December, so, I mean, would it be something to consider just to keep it more uniform, to do keep it the same 9 to 7? Is it, because that's what we're proposing, or is it to go to 8? I can't remember.
I think we're looking at 8 in the summer and keeping it at
6 in the
6 in the winter, even though it is dark
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
6.
and I think there's two things going on in the summertime. Not only do you have the daylight savings time, but you also have the sun out later. So you get the double whammy of keeping it lighter longer. So I think that would help us differentiate between the two a little bit.
Moving on, we're almost done, I promise. Moving on to the next suggestion by outside counsel was just at the very beginning of the ordinance, adding that one of the purpose for regulating is prevention of crime. We did not have that in our ordinance previously. Really? All right. We already briefly discussed the removal of the distinction between commercial and non-commercial handbill. Handbill being the materials that people hand out, not handbills. Okay, and now to Alderwoman Smith's question. It has been suggested that we remove the explicit distinction which separates political campaign literature and religious materials from other types of materials. And I think that we see both sides of, we either leave it in or we remove it. So by leaving it in, we are making it very clear that if you are distributing political literature, religious materials, that you do not need a permit. We're not suggesting that you have to get one, but by leaving it in there, we are also identifying the fact that we are differentiating between the types of speech. So it's kind of, if we leave it in, it makes it more clear for the public. However, we are differentiating between the types of speech. But are we doing that already by not requiring a permit?
May I? In addition to that, we're already doing that already by not considering either of these two items as solicitation. So if somebody has no soliciting at the door and you are out campaigning or for religious reasons, you can bypass that sign.
And technically, you can. We try to tell people that when they're out, if there's no soliciting in the broader sense of the term, maybe just skip that door. Now, I understand for political purposes, that's maybe not, it's easier said than done. I did see another sign that Ms. Ling showed that did say it included all the other reasons. No soliciting here and no doing this, or this. So it's much more clear.
When they're laid out like that at the door, then you definitely should walk away.
Right.
Just a no soliciting sign technically doesn't include religious or political campaigning.
Right, because these two specifically and others don't fall under the definition.
Some of them say if you're not selling Thin Mints, keep going.
Ah, I like that. Okay. One more time. And we're done, unless there are additional questions.
Any additional questions or comments?
I do.
Alderman Yamas?
Thank you, Chairman. One comment I want to make is that the changes that we're proposing are going to effectively ban people from being able to sell certain items. Some of those are, I think, beneficial to the community. And I think that rather than completely banning them, we should give them a location, these vendors, where they're able to sell to the public. I think one area that we could use that would be beneficial to residents, to the vendors, and still really addresses what we're looking to address in these changes would be to allow that at our public parks. So at Garfield Park, Phillips Park, Wilder, McCarty Park. We could still keep the other changes in place that prohibit them from setting up tents, but at least, I mean, if we could have a small table or something with teddy bears, flowers, gifts, toys for kids that are there playing at the park, I think that would be a good compromise for people. And especially, I mean, this was years ago now, when I think I may have been in high school when we changed the ordinance that prohibited people from pushing the cart selling popsicles and elotes. People, residents, I would say, were greatly impacted by that, me being one of them. So I don't want this to be the next step in that direction. So if we can find a place for vendors to come together with the community, it would be great for everyone.
Yeah, and I think that if we were to still issue permits for that activity as well, it would help not only encourage, but also monitor and really put everyone on the same playing field. So that's definitely a very good idea.
Great
That was
suggestion.
it, thank you.
Anybody else?
It's a lot of information.
Yes. All right, with that being said, there's no need for a closed session. A motion to adjourn.
We don't, this is just. for
Second.
information only.
Just information only, right? Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, it was just information only, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
Can I just ask one more question? Do we have a projected timeline when this would come back to us?
So I think that by the next RAP committee meeting is potentially lofty, but we could try for that if
Oh, you don't have to rush it.
a draft.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to see if it was something that was going to then come back and later in the year or just in the coming weeks or months.
I think while we have the momentum, we'd like to stick with it if that's okay.
Of course.
Without an hour-long presentation, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Yamas. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 4-0. This meeting is adjourned at 3:23 PM. Thanks, everyone.